buying cheap Chinese bike parts on AliExpress can be a great way to save a bit of cash, but admittedly the quality can be a bit lacking in places. So here are 5 things that I've bought on there that have genuinely exceeded my expectations and yeah, really lasted. My name, as always, is Luke, and welcome back to Trace Velo. So these super lightweight plastic pedals are from a brand called Costello, and I bought them back in December 2021 for just over 60 quid. Now I did a video on them a couple years back, and they're essentially knockoffs of a discontinued pedal from Time, their Espresso 12 model.
Now you can watch the original video for the full context, but that aside, I had 2 reservations about them. Firstly, they use cheap shielded bearings rather than ones with decent rubber seals. Essentially, shielded bearings are much more prone to water ingress, which for a pedal running close to the road isn't really ideal. And secondly, where the titanium axle fits inside the body of the pedal, instead of a nice roller bearing at the interface like the legit Time Espresso pedal, they've kind of cheaped out and used a nylon bushing. Now I thought the shielded bearing would wear out really quickly along with that nylon bushing and they would kind of break, but I was completely wrong. I've run these basically since I bought them, and I must have put at least 4,000 miles through them at this point, all weathers, all seasons, and yeah, they've been great. A really nice, stable pedal system. Clipping in and out is a dream, and they are so lightweight. A regular set of Shimano clipless road pedals, 325 grams. These, less than half that, 154 grams. Now, a lot of people warned me that the cleats don't last very long, but I've not really found that to be true, to be honest. They don't last quite as long as Shimano SPD SL cleats, but they're not far off at all. Plus, you can get replacements for less than 10 quid. Servicing the pedal is also super straightforward. I took them apart yesterday, and one of the shielded bearings is just on the way out, so I picked up some replacements for like 5 quid. Now, the plastic retention clip at the back is starting to wear, and the metal cover cap will kind of wear through at some point, but I reckon I've got another 2, maybe 3,000 miles left in them.
For 60 quid, that ain't bad, in my opinion. I like them so much, actually. I've got another set on the way. They're in the post at the minute. But yeah, an incredibly lightweight pedal system that's cheap and durable too. Now, it's worth stating, I've bought all of the stuff that I'm showing you today with my own cash. Nothing was sent to me for review or anything like that. So if you want to check any of these bits and bobs out, I've put some links down there in the description for you. Right, anyway, let's crack on. Okay, so in the same sort of vein as those pedals, these cycle shoes from a brand called Sidebike, yeah, absolutely love them. I bought them back in February 2022, and every single time I've been out on my road bike since then, I've worn them. Maybe like 8,000 miles in them, something like that. I mean, I used to swear by physique cycle shoes, but after getting these, I don't think I'd buy anything else.
Carbon outsole, so stiff and super lightweight, but obviously really comfortable, and I think they look really cool as well. I've had a few crashes in these, and you can see some scuff marks from sliding over the tarmac. But yeah, the upper or casing of the shoe is nice and durable. So for physical and mental trauma from the crashes aside, the actual shoe came out fine. The lacing system is also amazing. It uses these A-top dials. Again, you can see nice and scuffed up from the crash, but yeah, they still work perfectly. I can't really say enough good things about these. You can get them for about 70 quid. Yeah, amazing shoes for the price. I've also got some mountain bike shoes from Sidebike. These are great too. Yeah, they make some wicked stuff. Definitely worth a look.
Okay, so I bought these shifters back in July of 2020, and yeah, it's gonna sound like exaggeration here, but honestly, they offer some of the best quality and most reliable shifting that I've ever used in a mechanical group set.
They are branded MicroNew, but you can find them under a brand called Mixim, M-I-X-I-M, and one called Light Pro as well. They're knockoffs of a Taiwanese brand called Microshift, and again, I did a video on these a while back, so check that out for the full context. My set are 2x11 and cost me 60 quid, but right now you can find them for about 40 quid for the pair. Now, the cable pull ratio is identical to Shimano, so with 11 speed, I recommend pairing them up with R7000 derailleurs, like I have here. And here's a quick shifting demo for you. Absolutely perfect all the way up and down the cassette. They offer a really positive click when upshifting, and downshifting, the lever travel is predictable and easy to manage. And this doesn't do it justice either. The shifting is honestly fantastic. I used to ride these when I lived in London, and navigating pretty heavy commuter traffic, you gotta have quick and reliable shifting. These absolutely delivered. In addition, this bike is my test bench for kind of wheels and brakes, and when building it up, I had loads of other mechanical shifters to choose from, including legitimate 105 R7000. I honestly prefer these. Ergonomics are great, rubber on the hoods is excellent quality, shifting is top tier, and importantly, they are incredibly easy to install and work on. The gear cables come out of the sides of the shifters, which you never really see anymore, but I think it's one of the reasons that they shift so nicely. Routing all the cables out the back of the shifter and under the bar tape looks a lot tidier, but sharp corners can add a lot of friction to cable runs. Coming out the side like this does look a bit dated, and some might say makes the bike a bit uglier, but it does keep any bends in the gear cable to a minimum, massively improving the shifting quality, and it also makes them super easy to service.
Now, I was obviously a little bit skeptical when I sort of first put them on the bike. I figured something would snap or break after the first couple of rides, but nearly 4 years later, I don't think I've had any issues with them. I mean, I used them this morning on this bike here behind me. They're still completely solid. So it's difficult for me to overstate just how much these shifters surprised me. Pair them up with some decent derailleurs and they are incredibly good. I mean, for the price, they're pretty much unbeatable, if you ask me. So disc brake is all I really ride these days. Rim brake can do one as far as I'm concerned, but no, seriously, I have tried a lot of different disc rotors in the past, and these are the ones that I just keep coming back to. Firstly, they're incredibly cheap, like £5 each, and they really last. I mean, I've used this set on and off on a couple of different bikes for about 4 years, plenty of life left in them.
You can find them under a couple of different brand names. This one is ZRACE, I've got one here from ZTTO, and III Pro do one too, but yeah, they're all the same. With floating rotors like this, where the steel brake track is separated from an internal spider with rivets, I've seen these rivets come loose and rattle. This has never happened on any of these discs. I've had about 6 of them, and yeah, I've put them under some proper punishment as well. Now, they're not technically rated for use with sintered metal brake pads. I run them with sintered metal, but they do eat up the steel. I think you'd get maybe 2 or 3 pad changes out of them with that type of brake pad. And I'll also say, don't bother with the finned version like this one. They're meant to sort of imitate Shimano Ice Tech rotors, but these fins aren't integral to the steel brake track. They're just kind of glued in. A couple of them came loose on my rotor. Hopefully you can see that here. So I just pried them out. You can see by this little tide mark. Yeah, they didn't have much contact with the steel anyway, so I doubt they did that much for cooling.
But overall, they strike a really nice balance. They're lightweight, but the majority of the mass is in that steel brake track around the outside, kind of where it needs to be. They last ages, don't rattle or creak. The braking is really nice, and they're dirt cheap. A+ as far as I'm concerned. So I've shown this saddle before. It's a 3D printed carbon one. It cost me 70 quid, but you can find them now for 30 to 50 quid, something like that. So the price has definitely dropped. I've ridden it about 3,500 miles by now. I use it at least a couple of times every week. It's on this bike behind me. Yeah, it's great.
I was a bit concerned that the 3D printed rubber would degrade quite quickly over time and sort of lose shape and elasticity, but no sign of that at all. It's comfortable and lightweight, pretty grippy on the top, so it keeps you in place on the saddle, and seriously robust as well. I mean, like what more do you need? And a quick bonus saddle here, this one. So it's a knockoff of a San Marco Speed saddle that I got, I got this back in early 2020. Like the disc rotors, it's one you can find under a couple of different brand names. My one is unbranded, but EC90 do one, and also a brand called Toseek. But yeah, again, it's exactly the same thing. Fully carbon base and rails, so super lightweight at 112 grams. But again, it's lasted so well. Admittedly, not quite as comfortable as the 3D printed one. The padding is pretty much non-existent, but I gotta give it up. I've used it on at least 4 different bikes at this point. Yeah, still going strong.
It's the bonus clip time.
Right then, a few honourable mentions at the end here. This bottom bracket bearing press tool thing here. I bought it in 2018. It cost me 25 quid, although I think you can get them for about 15 quid now. I use it all the time, and not just for bottom brackets, but with a bit of finagling, I've also used it for wheel bearings and stuff like that as well.
Now these carbon bottle cages, absolutely goated. 5 years old, yeah, still going strong. And lastly, it's a little self-serving, but these M2 jerseys from my sponsor Sirocco, they were given to me, and I'm plugging my sponsor, so do bear that in mind. But these are 3 or 4 years old, must have been in and out of the wash hundreds of times at this point. The colours are still nice and vibrant. Yeah, they still look great. Admittedly, the rubber hem is starting to kind of peel off on this black one, but I got this back in 2020. I'd say, yeah, I'd say that's not half bad considering the age. Anyway, I can get you 10% off everything Sirocco do, so if you're looking for a fresh jersey for the summer, yeah, maybe check them out. I'll stick the link in the description.
Right, cool. So subscribe if you like this kind of thing. Hit the like button if you enjoy this episode. And if you've got any questions or comments for me, leave them down below with a baguette emoji either before or after, so that I know you're taking this whole thing seriously. Right, I've got some Taste the Difference Scotch eggs that I bought for lunch, so I'm gonna go and eat. I'll say one, but I'm gonna eat both of them. So yeah, right, see you next time, ciao. It's another bonus clip time, so yeah, sorry for the mess in here, but I figured this thing out and I wanted to show you. So these Costello pedals that I mentioned earlier, I said that the nylon bushing in here was still perfect, but I've come to realize that's not quite the case actually. So essentially I replaced the bearing in the back here. That's where that what was a shielded bearing. I've replaced it with those rubber seal bearings. They sit right here, and at the back about here, that's where that nylon bushing is. There's still a little bit of play in the pedal. So despite the fact the bearing is nice and fresh, I can still feel the pedal tilt up and down ever so slightly. And I've got these to compare it to. So these are the legitimate Time pedals that these are a knockoffs of. And those have that needle roller bearing in the back there. These have done a very similar amount of mileage actually, and there is no play up and down. So yeah, contrary to what I said, the nylon bushing in the back here has worn ever so slightly. It's not, you know, a problem at all really, but I did a little bit of digging and I found out what the actual bearing code was for the needle roller bearings in the back of these Time pedals, and I'll put the bearing code on screen, but here they are. And yeah, they were incredibly cheap. I got 2 for £6 on eBay, so let me get these out. Okay, so here it is, and hopefully you can see those kind of roller bearings in there. And basically what I'm going to do is, well, like I said, I've got another set of these Costello pedals on the way. They'll be with me in a day or two. I'm going to replace the shielded bearing, but it also means I can now replace that nylon bushing. I've seen people hook them out, and then I can replace it with this legitimate needle roller bearing. So essentially, if you get a set of those Costello pedals for a few quid, you can upgrade them to exactly the same spec as the legitimate Time ones, which is pretty cool. Yeah, I'm sure the audience for this kind of upgrade is incredibly small, but there we go. Should be easy enough. I will see you next time. Ciao.